When we talk about global business services, GBS, the image that probably springs to mind for a lot of us is still that, well, traditional picture. Right.
Yeah, the back office.
Exactly. The engine room, doing essential work, but sort of quietly in the background, always focused on, cutting costs, driving efficiency.
Handling the high volume stuff like
Yeah.
AP, HR admin, procurement tasks.
Right. And look, for a long time, that was the definition.
Yeah.
And it delivered real value, no doubt about it.
Absolutely it did. But the sources we've been digging into for this deep dive,
Hmm.
well, they tell a dramatically different story now.
Uh-huh. It sounds like the landscape is shifting big time.
Oh, it's more than shifting.
Yeah.
It's really undergoing what you can only call a radical transformation. We've got some great insights here from places like HFS Research, Scott Madden, Chasey Partners, BCG,
Okay.
and they all paint this picture of GBS moving pretty decisively away from that traditional cost center role.
Towards something more strategic.
Exactly. Something much more central to how a modern company actually operates.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive then. We want to unpack this evolution for you.
Yeah, let's get into it.
We'll look at the specific kinds of innovations that are, reshaping GBS. Where is this all heading? What's the future look like?
And what big business problems, the stuff that the C-suite really cares about, is GBS now actually set up to solve?
Crucially, yeah. And how is success measured now? Because it sounds like it's moving way beyond just counting the pennies saved.
That's a huge part of it. The metrics are changing, fundamentally.
Right. So the goal here is to get you informed quickly but thoroughly on what really is a significant shift happening right at the core of a lot of businesses worldwide.
Okay, let's dive into the details of how this is all unfolding.
Perfect. So that brings us nicely to our first big chunk, the radical shift. How GBS is morphing from that, familiar cost center into more of a strategic powerhouse. You mentioned the old paradigm, cost reduction, efficiency. Can you flesh that out a bit? What did it actually look like?
Sure. So historically, GBS basically meant shared service centers. Right?
Okay.
The idea was to centralize repetitive tasks from different parts of the business, finance, HR, procurement, maybe IT support, into one place.
To do it cheaper and maybe more consistently.
Yeah, standardization was key, better controls, but yeah, primarily cost reduction through economies of scale. And a huge piece of that, as HFS, Scott Madden, BCG all point out, was labor arbitrage.
Ah, right. Moving the work to places where labor costs were lower.
Precisely. Setting up centers in, say, India or Eastern Europe or Latin America to perform the same tasks for less money than in maybe London or New York.
So that lower cost was really the main selling point at the start.
It was the dominant value proposition.
Yeah.
Doing essential work reliably, consistently, and crucially cheaper. And it worked for what it was designed for.
But it also kind of cemented that image, didn't it? GBS equals back office support, cost focused.
It absolutely did. It became synonymous with being a support function, not necessarily a strategic one.
Okay, so if that was the old way, what's driving this massive change now? Why does GBS need to evolve beyond just cost and efficiency?
Well, there are some really powerful forces at play. You've got internal pressures and external ones.
Okay.
Internally, there's this growing pressure on GBS leaders to really align with what the top leadership cares about. HFS research shows this clearly, meaning the C-suite is laser-focused on things like driving revenue growth, improving overall business margins, and speeding up digital modernization across the whole company.
Right, the big strategic goals.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And GBS strategies that were historically almost entirely about saving money,
Mhm.
well, they didn't always feel like they were directly contributing to those bigger, growth-oriented, future-looking objectives.
Yeah, I can see that. If the CEO is talking about adding millions in revenue and the GBS head is talking about shaving off a few thousand in processing costs,
Yeah.
they might feel a bit disconnected.
It's exactly the point, a growing disconnect in priorities. Then you layer on the external pressures, and these have just become huge.
Like what, technology?
Technology is massive, yeah.
Oh.
The pace of advancement, particularly AI, is just incredible. But also, market volatility seems like the new normal, right? Businesses need to be way more agile.
Uh-huh.
Customer expectations are through the roof. People expect seamless, digital, personalized experiences everywhere.
No patience for clunky processes anymore.
None. And then resilience. Think about COVID-19. That really shone a spotlight on GBS.
How so?
Well, GBS often played a critical role in just keeping essential business operations running when everyone was suddenly working from home, dealing with massive disruption.
Right, they had the distributed setup, the processes.
Exactly. And there's a striking statistic in one report, I think it was BCGS Oni Irikaway, based on award applicant data.
Hmm.
During COVID, organizations with GBS saw only a 1% drop in productivity.
Wow, only 1%.
Yeah, compared to 13% for organizations without GBS.
Okay, that's a powerful data point. That really shows the value beyond just cost, especially in a crisis. Resilience wasn't maybe the main reason GBS started, but it's become crucial.
It really has. It added a whole new dimension to its perceived value. But even beyond those external pressures, the old model itself was hitting limits.
Limitations. Like what?
Well, sources like HFS point out some real internal challenges pushing for change. Things like finding and keeping good talent when the job is seen as just back office admin.
Yeah, attracting ambitious people might be tough.
Right. Then you had clunky old legacy systems holding back digitalization. Silos between departments stopping true end-to-end process flow.
Ah, the silo problem. Always a killer.
Always. And GBS often had access to tons of data, but wasn't really set up to use it strategically for, generating real value beyond efficiency metrics. Plus, that persistent back office label itself was limiting.
So the old model, successful in its time, just wasn't cutting it anymore in this faster, more complex digital world with higher expectations.
Pretty much. It set the stage perfectly for this new vision we're seeing emerge.
Right, and this is where that HFS term comes in, generative business services, or
Yeah.
GenBS, leveraging AI, machine learning, data analytics.
Yeah, HFS uses generative business services to really capture this future state. It's a vision where GBS fundamentally changes how work gets done
How so?
by using AI-led, data-driven services to create a seamless, integrated, frictionless enterprise. It's about GBS breaking out of that back office box.
Becoming more strategic, more innovative.
Exactly. A
Yeah.
powerhouse that actually designs and enables new ways of working across the entire organization, not just optimizing the old ways.
That sounds like a complete flip in philosophy from being seen as, a cost-cutting machine. Essential maybe, but focused on savings.
To becoming a game changer, as HFS puts it. An innovation capability orchestrator.
Wow. Innovation capability orchestrator. That's a fundamentally different job description.
It is. It's a profound shift in mandate, in capability.
Yeah.
You're moving from just tweaking existing processes for cost to actively designing and enabling new processes, new business models, using technology and data.
And why should someone listening care about this if it's just internal shuffling?
But it's not just internal shuffling. That's the key point.
Right.
When GBS becomes this strategic driver, using data, using tech, connecting things end to end, maybe even influencing the front office, it impacts almost everything. It touches your customer experience directly. It affects how fast your company can innovate, how quickly it can adapt to market changes. It boosts overall business agility. And ultimately, it hits the bottom line, but not just through savings anymore, through creating new value.
Okay, that really clarifies the stakes. This isn't just tinkering around the edges. It's about enabling a different kind of company. All right, so we get the why, pressures, the limits, and the vision. Let's dig into the how, section 2. Innovations driving the evolution. What are the actual ingredients making this happen?
Well, the first, and you could argue the most central ingredient, highlighted across pretty much all the sources, HFS, Scott Madden, Chasey, BCG, is a radical technological transformation.
Okay.
And right at the heart of that, it's the accelerating power of AI and automation.
Right, AI is everywhere. But how is it specifically changing things in GBS, fundamentally?
Well, the consensus is that generative AI, alongside other machine learning tools, are really becoming the core drivers of innovation and strategic value now.
So it's not just hype.
No, Chasey Partners makes a really strong point here. They say that achieving true hyperautomation, getting really transformative results with AI that used to be kind of aspirational.
Yeah, lots of talk, pilot project.
Exactly. But now, they say, it's becoming genuinely actionable. It's moving from those small pilots into integrated capabilities that are driving significant change.
Actionable, not just aspirational. I like that. Can you give some concrete examples? What does this AI stuff actually do in GBS?
Sure. Chasey points to things like intelligent document processing, or IDP.
Okay, what's that?
So it's not just scanning an invoice anymore. It's using AI to actually understand, extract, and process information from documents that aren't perfectly structured: invoices, forms, customer emails, whatever. It automates tasks that used to need a human to read and key in the data.
Okay. Takes out a lot of manual work.
A ton. Then there's predictive work routing. AI looks at historical data, current workloads, and intelligently sends incoming tasks or requests to the right team or the right person, or maybe even a fully automated process.
So it optimizes workflow automatically.
Yeah, balances workloads, speeds things up, and AI-enabled process mining. This is really interesting.
Process mining.
Yeah, it analyzes the digital footprints our processes leave behind in IT systems. It visualizes how work actually flows, not how we think it flows.
Finding the hidden bottlenecks and weird detours.
Exactly. It identifies bottlenecks, deviations, spots opportunities for automation or redesign with a level of insight that was just impossible before.
So it's getting much smarter than just automating simple clicks. It's making the whole operation more intelligent, more adaptive.
That's the idea. And crucially, this isn't always about GBS teams building super complex AI models themselves.
No.
No. KZ highlights the trend of embedded AI within the big enterprise platforms. Think Salesforce, ServiceNow, SAP.
So the tools they already use are getting smarter.
Exactly. These core systems are integrating AI capabilities directly. That means advanced analytics, automation, intelligent assistants are becoming more accessible right within the existing workflows. That really helps speed up adoption.
And HFS ties this back to their GenBS idea, right? Talking about AI-led, data-driven services focused on growth and innovation.
Yes, that's a critical link. It's using AI not just for internal efficiency, but to analyze all that data flowing through GBS in ways that actually uncover strategic opportunities. Maybe for revenue growth, maybe to improve customer engagement, maybe to fuel the company's innovation pipeline. GBS starts generating proactive, data-driven insights.
Instead of just processing transactions reactively.
Precisely.
Okay, AI is clearly central.
Yep.
But it's not just AI driving this, is it? The sources mention other tech, too.
Oh, absolutely not. AI might be the sharp end of the spear, but you need the whole shaft, right? The transformation relies on a whole digital ecosystem. HFS talks about hybrid and multi-cloud solutions being important, providing that flexible infrastructure for workload balancing, disaster recovery, cost optimization.
Makes sense.
And Scott Madden, looking at top GBS performers, lists a whole toolkit. You've got analytics, obviously huge, RPA, robotic process automation.
The bots doing repetitive tasks.
Yep, still highly adopted, though maybe seen as less transformative than AI now. ERP systems are still there, but their role is evolving, less the rigid core, more an integrated part of a bigger digital landscape.
Okay.
Then you have intelligent chatbots for better service, OCR for reading documents, data visualization tools to make sense of everything, process mining, as we said, workflow automation, BPM tools, natural language processing.
Wow, that's quite a tech stack. Some of those, like RPA, feel more established, maybe less cutting edge than Gen AI.
They are. And the Scott Madden data backs that up. Adoption's near 100% for things like analytics, cloud, RPA among the leaders. AML is high too, over 70%. Gen AI being newer is naturally a bit lower, maybe 55% in their survey group. But the key point, HFS really stresses this, is how technology's role is changing. It's moving beyond just enabling what we already do, maybe faster or cheaper, to actively creating competitive advantage. Enabling totally new ways of working, generating insights that we couldn't get before, delivering value that actually differentiates the company.
But is there a gap between having access to all this cool tech and actually using it effectively to transform?
Yes. That's a huge challenge, HFS points out. Organizations know about these tools, they might even buy them. But the adoption and effective use often lag behind. It's one thing to install the software, quite another to really integrate it, train people, redesign processes around it to get the full benefit.
The classic implementation hurdle, knowing versus doing.
Exactly. And BCG reinforces this. They talk about the need for foundational digital capabilities. Things like having the right tools accessible, sure, but also data transparency across the business and harmonized end-to-end processes.
And they found capability lacking there.
Often surprisingly low. BCG notes, even though everyone agrees these things are critical for the future strategic role of GBS, especially getting data accessible, usable across functions, is absolutely fundamental for making AI and analytics work properly.
Speaking of harmonizing processes, that leads us straight into the second big innovation area, process reimagination.
Yes, and this shift is maybe just as fundamental as the tech one. Think about how GBS scope used to be defined.
By function, right? AP team, AR team, GL team.
Exactly. Functional activities, maybe handling insurance claims, HR admin. Then over the last decade or so, as HFS and Scott Madden note, there was a big push towards thinking end-to-end.
Like order to cash, procure to pay.
Precisely. connecting all the steps across different departments into one logical flow. Hire to retire for employees. That E2E view is still vital.
But the future goes beyond that.
The future vision, according to HFS, goes further. Scope won't just be driven by functional tasks or even these E2E business processes. It'll be driven by enterprise data flows.
Enterprise data flows, what does that mean?
Think about how customer data moves from marketing to sales to service to billing. Or employee data HR, payroll, IT access. Or vendor data procurement, logistics, finance.
Okay.
The idea is to use these fundamental data streams as the organizing principle, to build a truly connected, frictionless enterprise where information just flows and processes get triggered by data events, not just rigid, predefined steps.
Wow. So data becomes the underlying structure, dictating how GBS operates, not just the tasks or process maps.
That's the vision. It fundamentally changes GBS's role. It becomes the master of the company's critical operational data flows.
Which ties right back into getting new value from data.
Absolutely. And Scott Madden positions GDS as a key driver, even a designer, of process rethinking, especially when the company's doing broader digital transformation.
So GBS helps figure out the new way to do things.
Yes, and crucially, they warn against the lift and shift trap.
Meaning just automating a bad process.
Exactly. Taking an old, clunky, inefficient manual process and just replicating it in a shiny new digital system without questioning the underlying logic. It's a massive missed opportunity.
Yeah, digitizing garbage still leaves you with, well, digital garbage.
Pretty much. The focus has to be on fundamentally rethinking the business rules, reimagining the workflow based on what the new tech makes possible, and importantly, integrating the employee experience right into the design. How does this new process feel for the person doing it or interacting with it?
And GBS is well-placed to lead that rethinking.
Uniquely well-placed, arguably. They have years of deep process knowledge from running shared services and this growing focus on experience, both customer and employee.
Okay, so tech is evolving, processes are being rethought around data. What about the people? The ones doing the work, designing the systems, that's the third innovation, talent model innovation.
Right, and this is another huge departure from the past. As we said, GBS had historically leaned heavily on labor arbitrage, cost differentials. HFS points out that, look, while that saved a lot of money, you eventually hit a point of diminishing returns. There's only so much more value you can squeeze out just by optimizing labor cost.
Like squeezing a lemon, eventually it's dry.
That's the analogy they use, exactly.
Yeah.
So the shift now is decisively towards prioritizing new skills, scarce skills, the ones needed for this strategic, data-driven, tech-enabled GBS.
What kind of skills are we talking about?
Well, HFS and Scott Madden list quite a few critical ones. Things like advanced problem solving, real process design capability, not just mapping what exists, but designing what should exist. Strong data management and analytics skills, obviously.
Makes sense.
Expertise in customer experience, CX design, process automation specialists, but also softer skills, strong stakeholder engagement, change management, because you need to bring the organization along with these changes.
Yeah, implementation is key.
And of course, specific AI-related skills are increasingly in demand.
These sound way more strategic, analytical, design-focused than just processing transactions.
They absolutely are, which means a big push towards upskilling existing teams. And that has a side benefit. As one leader quoted by HFS notes, it offers richer career paths, which helps keep good people.
Retaining talent, yeah. And what about where these people are? Is it still all offshore?
That's changing too. The focus is shifting from primarily offshore for cost towards finding these new high-value skills wherever they happen to be. HFS calls it an anywhere shore model.
Anywhere shore. So tapping into global talent pools based on skill, not just costs.
Exactly. You might still have transactional work in lower cost centers, but the high-end design, analytics, AI skills, you find them where the talent is.
And new ways of working fit in here too, like remote work.
Yes. BCG confirms remote work is pretty established in GBS now, partly thanks to the pandemic proving it could work. But they make the point that just letting people work from home isn't enough. The real need now is to adopt truly agile ways of working and develop leaders who know how to manage teams effectively in these virtual digital setups.
Leading distributed teams requires different skills.
Absolutely. Managing performance, collaboration, culture, when you're not all in the same room, that's a focus area.
Okay, so skills are changing, work location is more flexible, leadership needs to adapt. What about how GBS interacts with the outside world, like vendors and partners?
Right, that's the fourth area, commercial and relationship innovation. HFS describes a fundamental shift here. From vendors being just transactional order takers, do this specific task for this fee, towards viewing them as strategic partners. Even ecosystem orchestrators.
Ecosystem orchestrators. That sounds like GBS is managing a whole network of capabilities, internal and external.
That's the idea. It's moving beyond basic outsourcing to building real collaborative relationships. And that means rethinking the commercial models too.
Moving away from just paying per person or per transaction.
Exactly. Away from FTE-based or volume-based pricing. HFS says future models are leaning more towards shared revenue and risk.
Meaning the provider's pay is tied to the actual business outcome.
Yes. Or value-based pricing, paying for tangible, measurable results. Did we achieve X% cost savings beyond the baseline? Did we help increase revenue by Y? Did customer satisfaction hit Z target?
So the provider has skin in the game for the result, not just doing the work.
Precisely. HFS also mentions hybrid models, co-innovation partnerships, where the GBS organization and the provider maybe invest together to develop something new, sharing the risks and rewards. It incentivizes genuine innovation from partners.
And transparency is key to making that work.
Absolutely. Yeah. Enhanced transparency, clear accountability mechanisms, shared dashboards, that's crucial for these outcome-based relationships.
Makes total sense. If GBS itself is becoming more strategic, its partnerships need to reflect that focus on outcomes and innovation, not just cost. Okay, so we've got the innovations covered: tech, process, talent, partnerships. Where is this all actually leading? What's the destination? Let's look at Section 3, the future destination.
Well, one of the most significant shifts is definitely expanded scope and influence. GBS is breaking out of the back office.
How so? Where is it going?
Scott Madden clearly shows GBS extending its reach into areas it never used to touch specifically. Customer-facing activities. The front office.
The front office, like sales support, marketing operations, maybe even helping draft proposals or do brand graphics. That feels like a huge leap.
It is a huge leap. And Scott Madden explains the logic. It's about finding new ways to generate revenue.
How? By using GBS skills in the front office.
Exactly. By leveraging the data insights and process excellence GBS has built, they can potentially identify cross-sell or upsell opportunities. They can help streamline customer journeys, making interactions smoother.
Which should improve customer satisfaction and retention.
That's the goal. Better engagement, higher satisfaction, faster service.
Yeah.
It's really a strategic response to what modern customers expect: seamless, efficient, personalized service.
So GBS uses its strengths process data to directly impact the top line, revenue, and the customer experience, moving from just cost saving to actually enabling revenue.
Precisely. And tied to that expanded scope, GBS is increasingly being seen as and acting as a digital transformation engine for the whole company.
Not just transforming itself, but driving change everywhere.
Yes. Scott Madden notes that leading GBS organizations aren't just adopting digital tools for themselves. They're harnessing their cross-functional view, their tech capabilities, to be a catalyst for broader, enterprise-wide innovation.
Acting as the engine for digital change across the business.
Exactly. HSS talks about the end goal being that connected, frictionless enterprise we mentioned, maximizing value from all digital investments. And this vision often involves the convergence of IT and business operations.
Breaking down that traditional IT versus business silo.
Yeah, GBS sitting right at the intersection of process, data, tech, and multiple business functions. It's kind of uniquely positioned to help bridge that gap.
Which gets back to breaking down those silos we talked about earlier being a problem.
It does. And the actual services GBS offers are evolving too.
Yeah.
BCG highlights this shift away from being defined just by transactional work or even basic conceptual tasks.
So what are the future focus areas then?
According to BCG, it's increasingly about performing more advanced conceptual tasks, acting as true business partners to other functions, and critically, providing advanced insights and analytics.
So not just executing tasks, but analyzing the data, interpreting it, and actually helping other departments make better decisions or shape strategy.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
That advanced analytical capability is a core part of the future GBS value proposition.
And does the structure need to change to support all this?
Yes, an optimized structure is key. BCG talks about orchestrating a global setup that really facilitates collaboration, maybe establishing a dedicated orchestration unit or a digital and innovation center of excellence, a COE.
A central hub driving innovation.
Exactly, focused on pushing new capabilities, deploying tech consistently, and developing an international network of hubs, maybe specialized by skill or region or type of work.
Building a structure that enables the strategy.
Right. And underpinning all of this, absolutely critical as the foundation, is data at the core.
Mm.
BCG hammers this home, the need for data transparency, making data visible and accessible, and data harmonization, standardizing it so it can actually be used effectively for analytics and joined-up processes.
Which they said was an area of low current capability but super high future relevance.
Correct. Data is the fuel. It's the basis for fact-based decisions, for AI, for seamless processes, for competitive advantage. Getting the data right is non-negotiable for the future GBS.
Okay. So the future GBS sounds digitally savvy, analytically powerful, integrated across the business, supporting the front office, focused on innovation, built on data. It really sounds like it's now equipped to tackle some major business headaches. Let's move to Section 4. Business problems solved by this evolving GBS.
Absolutely. And one of the first ones it tackles head-on is that issue we started with, aligning with strategic priorities.
Closing that gap with the C-suite's goals.
Exactly. Remember how GBS used to focus mainly on cost while leadership wanted growth, margins, digital progress?
Right.
Well, by leveraging AI and data, by expanding into value-driving areas like the front office, by focusing on those key performance outcomes, KPOs, instead of just KPIs, the evolved GBS can directly contribute to those top-line goals. HFS data showed that gap, 71% of leaders prioritizing revenue growth, but GBS often stuck on cost. This evolution aims to close that gap.
And it still handles the crucial governance stuff too. Security, compliance.
Oh, yes. That foundation of control, compliance, risk management is still vital. HFS noted it was an area of relative strength and high CEO priority, and GBS continues to provide that essential support.
Okay. What other big problems?
Breaking down silos. The old functional model could sometimes reinforce them. But shifting the focus to enterprise-wide data flows, end-to-end processes, that helps create synergy, connect operations across different units. It enables that frictionless environment HFS talks about.
Connecting the dots across the organization.
Exactly. And while it's not the only focus anymore, improving efficiency in operations is still a major benefit. But it's achieved differently now.
Through the new tech and processes.
Right. Through hyperautomation, rethinking processes using data, deploying advanced tech, as Scott Madden and Chasey highlight. It's efficiency through transformation, not just cost-cutting.
And the really exciting bit for leadership is probably the new value creation.
This is where the generative aspect really comes in, unlocking new value. HFS talks about creating totally new revenue streams or optimizing things like pricing and sales effectiveness using AI and analytics on GBS data.
Using internal data to drive external results.
Yes, and even finding completely new sources of value by treating operational data as a strategic asset, data as an asset.
Turning data into something valuable in its own right.
Potentially, yeah. Using insights from internal operations to create something entirely new or gain unprecedented market understanding. Scott Madden adds that moving into the front office helps directly identify those cross-sell and upsell opportunities from data insights.
Turning operational knowledge into market impact.
You got it. And it's not just financial value. Enhancing experience is huge.
For customers and employees.
Both. Scott Madden mentions improving customer experience through better, faster service, using data to tailor interactions, smoothing out those end-to-end journeys, and internally, integrating employee experience into process design, better self-service, faster support that boosts productivity and satisfaction for the workforce too.
We mentioned resilience earlier, thinking about the pandemic. Does the new model boost that further?
Definitely. Increasing agility and resilience is a core strength. Scott Madden and BCG point to more flexible delivery models, digital capabilities allowing faster adaptation, strong global networks. All position GBS to handle volatility and disruption much better. It builds that organizational muscle.
Ready for whatever comes next. And what about the talent problem? Getting the right skills.
That focus on talent model innovation directly addresses it. Moving beyond just labor cost, actively building and acquiring strategic skills, analytics, process design, AI, change management means GBS is building the workforce it needs for the future, tackling those challenges HFS and Scott Madden identified.
Okay, so it's solving operational issues, breaking silos, boosting efficiency, creating value, improving experiences, building resilience, tackling talent gaps, and maintaining governance. That's a much bigger portfolio of problems solved than just cut costs.
It really is.
Which leads us perfectly into the final section. Section 5, measuring value beyond traditional KPIs. Because if GBS is doing all this different stuff, you can't just measure it the old way.
Exactly right. This is maybe the clearest signal of the whole transformation. You can't measure this new strategic GBS primarily by cost savings or transaction volumes anymore. HFS talks explicitly about moving away from traditional key performance indicators, KPIs.
Like cost reduction percentages, productivity ratios, cycle times.
Those old efficiency-focused metrics, measuring performance within the box.
So what's the new yardstick?
The focus is shifting decisively to key performance outcomes, KPOs. These measure the impact on broader business goals, not just the efficiency of the task itself.
Impact on what?
HFS highlights things like measurable improvements in customer satisfaction, direct contributions to revenue growth, the success of transformation projects in hitting strategic goals. Scott Madden adds things GBS leaders often cite as perceived value: improving customer experience, CX, enhancing employee experience, EX, successfully expanding scope, driving process performance, agility, innovation across the business.
So measuring impact on customers, employees, and the strategic direction, not just internal cost or volume.
That's the core idea. The measurement is directly linked to these new activities and outcomes.
So if GBS moves into the front office,
Scott Madden says you measure success by tracking the resulting increase in revenue potential, profitability, or maybe customer retention rates linked to that better service.
and if it drives digital transformation.
You measure the impact on enterprise-wide efficiency, agility, the total value unlocked by those new digital capabilities.
What about measuring value from data as an asset, that HFS concept?
Scott Madden suggests organizations are starting to track that specifically. Value generated internally, maybe efficiency gains from data-driven optimization, cost savings from predictive analytics, and value generated externally, identifying new market opportunities, maybe even creating new data products or services.
And those new commercial models, like value-based pricing, they're a form of measurement too.
Absolutely. Paying based on the measurable value received or tying provider payment directly to achieving strategic outcomes, that is a direct measurement of value delivery.
Skin in the game, as you said.
Exactly. And HFS mentioning enhanced transparency and accountability with partners, that's part of it too.
How so?
Better reporting, shared dashboards, clear metrics. It's not just monitoring activity, it's measuring delivery against those agreed KPOs and value propositions. It holds everyone accountable for the outcomes.
Okay, this whole shift from KPIs to KPOs really crystallizes the transformation. It shows GBS's impact is now being felt and measured right on the core business outcomes, way beyond just the cost line.
It really validates that strategic role GBS is aiming for and achieving in the best organizations.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. We've traced GBS right from its back office, cost-focused roots through all these radical innovations changing its capabilities. AI, automation, rethinking processes around data, evolving talent, transforming partnerships.
A lot of change.
A lot. We've looked at where it's heading, becoming this strategic, digital, value-creating engine, even moving into the front office, and seen how this new GBS can tackle major business problems, from silos to revenue growth.
And critically, how success itself is being redefined.
Exactly. That crucial shift from measuring just cost and efficiency via KPIs to measuring strategic impact via KPOs.
It's a transformation born partly out of necessity, internal limits, external pressures, but also fueled by this huge opportunity presented by tech and a much broader vision for what GBS can be.
So for you listening, here's maybe a final thought to chew on. Based on everything we've discussed about this GBS shift and redefining value with KPOs, think about your own organization. How is value measured today? Is the focus still mainly on those traditional KPIs, cost, volume, efficiency? Or are you starting to see or push for measures around KPOs like customer satisfaction, employee experience, revenue impact, transformation success?
And maybe even more provocatively, thinking about GBS leveraging data as an asset.
Right. How could the operational data floating around in your business be used differently? Could a more strategic GBS help unlock new value, new insights that nobody's currently capturing?
It's definitely an ongoing journey, but this deep dive clearly shows GBS is increasingly right at the heart of defining and delivering future business value.